My name's Harry, welcome to Weldon Fabrication. In this episode we're going to be looking at thermal cutting. More specifically we're going to be looking at CNC plasma cutting of materials. So what we're going to be looking at is a very simple program today. The machine we're using is CNC plasma cutter. We're using a Hypertherm power source, which is a 105 amp power source. We're going to be using 6mm material, keep it nice and simple. And all I want to do is cut out some donut rings. So what we're going to do is we have the function on our machine to set up on a flexi shape. So I'm going to select our flexi shape, and on this flexi shape it gives us the option of the ID and OD. So it's the inside diameter or internal diameter and the outside diameter. What we're going to do here is, at the moment it's up top here, it's asking us for the inner diameter. So I want to set that at 36mm, approximately an inch. And I'm going to set the outer diameter at 135, like so. Hit enter again. Leading length. So the leading length is the leading of the head of the torch when it cuts into the face of the material. So from the centre of the circle there, for instance, where it cuts from the inner circle into the edge, and then as it goes round. So rule of thumb, I normally do approximately the same leading, or approximately as the material thickness. We're saying 6mm, so I'm going to cut it at 5mm leading length, so not far off in terms of what we're talking about. Hit enter again. You can either have a straight leading or an arc leading. I'm going to have a straight one. Technically speaking, if you've got lots of curves on the material, you potentially might want to use an arc leading length, which you can do. Doesn't make too much difference on smaller items. If you're doing very fine, intricate work, then I would probably go for an arc leading there instead. Where the cut is actually going to start from, so it's going to start from the bottom right hand corner of each circle. So I've left it set on that. And that gives us effectively a set of credentials or information that we've programmed into the machine that we're then going to use for our cut itself. So we're going to hit next. This is the circle we've now created, or donut shape we create, with the inner circle there in the middle. Material size, so it gives us a range of the material, so this is 134.99, but again 134.99. Now obviously we're going to cut this piece of material out. I've got it set to cut on the line itself, so it could cut. You could get it cut externally or internally on that line. Material size, it needs to be slightly bigger than the actual item you're going to be cutting, because you're going to have a slight amount of wastage on the cut itself. Options down the side here, so we can change it or change the angle. We don't really need to do this at the moment, obviously, because it's a circle. Rotating the object isn't going to actually help us in any way, shape or form. You can scale it, so if you wanted to, if you put it in at this particular size and thought actually it's a little bit too big, you could then scale it down and bring it into a smaller size, or scale it up, so you could double the size, for instance. So if you said 2, then obviously it's going to bring it to double the size of what it is now. You have other functions, mini nesting, I'll go through those another time. What we're going to do is move on to next, and it gives us our main function. So we've got 6mm material, which is set on now. It's a 65 amp nozzle we're using, which is already set. It gives you all the piece of equipment you're going to need to assemble that nozzle. By setting 6mm material, automatically gives us our travel speed, kerf, other bits and pieces on that we need to know in terms of our cut. We've selected this because we're going to use the plasma. We've also selected that we're using mild steel material. The other thing which we can do on this, and this is on the major nesting, is that you can nest a piece of material, and what it enables you to do is when you click on it, if we've got our one circle or one donut we're going to be cutting out, what we can do is we could change this to 3 for argument's sake, and it will now be cutting 3 out. What it means then is that we're going to have 3 identical pieces cut out of the same piece of material, which is something which you're not going to be able to get if you're cutting it manually. With human error, it's almost impossible to get 3 items, or even more than 1 item, cut out and to be absolutely identical. So we hit next at that point in time. Back to this function screen here. So now what we can do is go next, and what it's asking us for now is the origin in terms of where the actual head of the torch is going to start from. So when it starts the program itself, what we're going to do is, these 3 circles we're going to cut out, you can see it's going to start on one and move its way along cutting them. So we're going to start the origin in the bottom left hand corner, so just click there once, and it brings it up, so that green dot now is going to stay in the bottom left hand corner, so that's where the cut is going to start from. And what we can do is move the head across, so we can set it on cut and then hit start, and that will just start cutting the material. We'll leave it on test for the time being. We're going to go on to jog, and we're going to move the head of the torch across to the position we require. And on the actual material itself, you can see there is a crosshair, a red laser, and that enables us just to move that into position. So we can move this around and we can select the positioning we require. I'm going to come approximately 10mm on the edge of the material just for the start of the cut, but we can see there now that we've got a crosshair in the corner of the piece of material. What I'm going to do is turn the laser off, and when I do, that's going to move the head of the torch across to where the laser was positioned, and therefore that's where the head of the torch is going to start cutting from. So I can move that back across, like so. I'm going to go to move back to doing the job, click back on that cut button again, and I'm going to hit start. So what we've ended up there is 3 identical donuts, all the same size. Now, what you could do is, instead of, you can actually create much more intricate shapes to be cut out on this. We can do them so we can link it to things like AutoCAD or Auto Inventor. We can even import pictures, so it could be a JPEG, for instance, convert it to a DXF file, and then load it up onto an imagery where we can actually cut it on this machine as well, and you can end up cutting out something like this. So there's many things you can cut out on this machine itself, and it's a very useful piece of equipment to be using. Thank you very much.